before today, how many of you have had a VR headset on? Keep your hands up if you've had it up for an enterprise application, not for gaming. Okay, so some hands still say it up, because this is where we're here to really talk about the enterprise and how enterprise is embracing virtual reality. So I think we're going to start with a quick video, and Jason, you're going to walk us through currently, sort of what Flow is doing. So let's cue the video, and why don't you tell us sort of a little about what we're seeing?
Sure, thank you. Hello, everybody. This is the partnership with HTC and ourselves. Flow Immersive does the visualization. How do we have a great conversation or collaboration around data? And being able to float above the conference room table where we can all interact with it, with virtual laser pointers, with remote avatars, if that's the case, so that we can see a greater level of detail than we're used to seeing on a flat screen. I mean, how many times has the most important point of your data been buried in point number 3 on slide number 20 of some PowerPoint deck, and the CEO or the C-suite just doesn't get it? So in this kind of a meeting, we completely change that dynamic. Everyone has the ability to see the detail that's not over-summarized. Maybe it's those couple of transactions at the end of the month or the quarter that totally changed that over-summarized report, but you didn't realize that the risk that it was only 2 transactions that made the difference. How do you see that data? How do you see that detail? Financial services, consultancies tend to be of a lot of our customers, as well as we've been in the UN, et cetera. I'd also like to mention that this feels cool. It feels like something new, but it's really just giving you a sense of mastery and control over the data, over your visualizations, and your ability to get a great mental model into the eyes, into the minds of your audience. We all have 3D mental models. That's the way our brains work, but we don't know how to communicate them well to others. And then, of course, the bottom line is make great decisions about that data. If we can't understand our problems and visualize it and can't communicate about it, or especially if we don't know how to continue to track those changes, then how are we going to solve humanity's problems or our enterprise's problems?
Right. How has this technology, so the company's been around for 9 years, helping companies visualize and interact with their data. How has it changed? How has the advancements in VR sort of changed, sort of what the company has, does?
So we initially thought we were going to do something more like the PowerPoint of VR, but the data visualization is what was more true to my background maybe than that, and that's what our customers most responded to. The big change the last 6 months is with what we call pass-through VR, where you can still see the real world as well as the VR, and the true AR glasses that are coming out. And as those shrink, but even just, let me just say, when you can still see each other across the table, that's where it's appropriate for enterprise, and it feels less gamey. Because I'm not a gamer. None of this is about games. This is about really helping us solve problems.
So Dan, when you saw the hands go up when I asked the question about sort of people who have had even a headset on, this is a group that is fairly tech forward, is early adopters. I would say probably 20 to 30% of the hands went up. So still not a lot. Does that surprise you? Does that, when you're sitting there looking at what the opportunity is, does it surprise you that still so few people have probably experienced, especially enterprise VR?
It doesn't, just in that, I think asking anyone to do their job or do the things that they're supposed to do each day, but then put this clunky goggles on your face and trust that it's gonna make you feel well, right? And you go, okay, I just don't want to do that, right? I think when we go back and look at things like 3D TVs, just ask people to do this exact same thing that they were doing before, and but wear glasses. And people are like, no, I don't want to do that. I already have glasses. Or you're asking me to take on something else to do the thing that I'm doing here on the couch. So that's when we start really looking at what are those real applications that make a difference in everybody's business and everybody's daily interactions. How do we improve that? How do we get better performance inside of the corporate environment? And 8 years ago, the only thing you could do with these headsets or goggles was gaming. So I think it's been a really good progression. But now what we're seeing is enterprise take over in investment and looking at the applications and how they can actually improve their daily interactions or performance for the year.
And you both talk about this idea of collaboration, right? We collaborate now around a singular data set. And for anyone who's put a headset on, it is isolating, right? It's almost sometimes the opposite of making it feel like you're around a table. The pass through and the way that HTC is designed, the augmented reality type features. Talk a little about sort of how collaboration is now happening. Is it literally people standing around a table together, all with headsets? Is it people who are remote interacting with other people? Is it a hybrid model? Jason, first talk about how are you seeing the adoption and how are people interacting? Are they in the same shared space? Are they remote? And what do you see is working?
I think that what we see is a huge hybrid across everything, meaning some people are at home on their computers, someone's stuck at the airport on their phone, and then there'll be one group of people who are co-located, standing around and seeing it in their table. Those remote persons show up as an avatar, and it could even be multiple remote locations dialing into the same space. So we can't expect everybody to put on a headset. We can't expect the senior person on the team to have a headset wherever they may be, stuck at an airport. And just imagine a meeting where the most important person in the meeting can't get into the meeting. I mean, that would be ridiculous, right? So that flexibility is absolutely key for adoption. And there's value each step of the way. You certainly don't get a worse experience on flat screen, but in parallax where you can see more with two eyes than on a flat screen, and it is
Right.
It is a different experience.
But that, from a technology standpoint, requires this ability to really interact in near real time, right? Zero latency for anyone. We all know on Zoom when someone's talking and there's a delay, someone talks over them. In this case, when you're talking about collaboration, everything needs to be happening at the same time. How do you think about this connected headset and the networks being able to provide this seamless, sort of ability to collaborate?
Sure. So, we've actually developed the Viverse. I think that's the new phrase everybody's terrified of, ERSE, at the end of everything, metaverse. And just Jason's point, it's already in your hand. It is your computer, it's your tablet, it's your phone. It could be a wearable. It's already in your hand. It's already the products that you're using today. You can put on these wearables and you can actually have that low latency or no latency types of experiences where you can visualize products, you can look at data sets and data flows. You can have the headsets on and connect it to a Wi-Fi network. Or what's going to be in the future is going to be 5G connectivity into these headsets, which resolves security, resolves latency, and it allows us to actually get to lighter technology going forward. But today, you can have all of your teams in multiple locations. You can have anything from 1 to 2 users to 50,000 plus users in an experience today, having that simultaneous experience. And we've already seen it at scale being used on the gaming side. It's even easier to do on the enterprise side. But we are already looking at 400 megapixel polygon images and renderings inside of these environments and taking people from multiple locations. So you can do very advanced things today. One example is we work with Blue Origin. Blue Origin reduced time change management approvals on design changes in the rocket by 100 hours because their engineers were in California and LA, Alabama, Houston, and in Florida. And they had to put these people in the same place and make a decision instantaneously. So they've reduced their change decision times by 100 plus hours.
So when we talked earlier about obviously AI and increasing productivity, you're starting to see that even just this collaborative environment being able to have real results, right? It's not just a nice to have, right? We're going to start to see that this is increasing productivity, more efficiency. And obviously we've talked a lot about AI. Jason, I think one of the things we talked about was AI as a way now to interact with your data, right? So now we're standing around the data. We've talked about various types of searches. How do I query the data? AI is really now allowing the users to manipulate and interact with the data in a way that they weren't able to before.
Exactly. When I first started the company like 8 years ago, I got up at a hackathon and said, I want to make Iron Man. It was only in the last maybe 6 months that the AI has come far enough that I feel like that's the experience I didn't know I wanted, I needed. Where when you get into an augmented reality situation, you don't have a keyboard, you don't even have a mouse, you maybe have a laser pointer you use in your hands. How do you have a system where you have a sense of mastery and control over what you're seeing? And just being able to speak to the AI and literally ask it some of the most crazy questions you can imagine. These simple things like, give me a 10-day or 10-year moving average. It writes the Python code and throws it back into 3D space for you. Or I had a pharmaceutical example where it was a time to eye opening metric after anesthesiology, after surgery. How long does it take for people to wake up? So you've got this metric column of data, and you've got maybe 50 other categorical columns, and I said, just ask the AI, because I'm a data scientist, but not that serious, I guess. How would I go about finding what categorical columns optimize that time to eye opening? And I said, here's a bunch of different algorithms, and I would recommend a random forest regression. You don't have to know what that means, because it then wrote the code and spit it back out and said, here's the top columns, and here's the amount of impact that each one had. And then I could ask it a second time, now give me various combinations of those columns so I can present to my customer a good guess on what's having what impact.
Right.
There's no way you could do that with an AI. It's like, it's next generation. You just feel so, I'm sorry to talk about the feeling so much, but it is so human to be able to have those questions answered. It doesn't feel high tech anymore. It feels more human.
But I think the other thing that's key there is it's answered instantaneously, right? And this is
Exactly.
data. This is data analytics that would have taken normally weeks, maybe days if you were very efficient, but weeks and even months to compile and put together. And now you're doing it in seconds and visualizing it. And for most of us, when it comes to retention and input, we are visual. Humans are 99% visual learners. That part you can't take away.
And you touched on briefly, you mentioned the word securely, right? So obviously a lot of people here who sit in organizations that have data that should not leave the confines of their organization. We've seen obviously all the stories now of people uploading their content to ChatGPT, not realizing they're putting their proprietary private data into a model.
Right.
Talk about the importance of, in these collaborative environments, keeping the data secure and how you're sort of addressing that.
Well, from day one, when we started our immersive journey of building augmented reality devices, virtual reality devices, mixed reality devices, and then the platforms and the software that would support it, we've always been focused on enterprise level security, whether it was your single sign-on capabilities, how it was firewalled off. We have even deployed into on-prem solutions to the point where it's allowed us to go work with the DoD. It's allowed us to work with some highly secure environments, and we work in the special operations community. These are all because of the things that we've done from a security standpoint, making sure that the cameras, making sure that the interactions, the content, everything is secure and protected. Other companies out there, like those cameras, those microphones are the business model. For us, our brand actually stands for innovation, technology, and humanity. So everything that we do is designed to actually benefit you, the end user, whether it's a corporate company or a customer or an individual user. Privacy for us is paramount, and that's how we treat it all.
If I can just add, HTC has the security side down in a way that unlike their competitors. Then also on our side, We can do entirely on-premise installations or private cloud. So we at Flow would never see your data, never have access to it. That's absolutely key for any sort of security review.
Right. So Dan, so this is obviously one enterprise application. You know, we've seen healthcare, military training, all these various, applications for VR, XR, AR. What excites you most when you think about what industries will be truly transformed by virtual mixed reality? You know, what do you see having the biggest disruption?
So one of the things that's really super interesting for us that we're seeing lately is the neural technology that's being implemented into the headsets. So now we have things like eye tracking where we can measure stress, we can measure performance for the individual user. We're actually getting to the point where we can see cognitive performance. This is being done through our PTSD research. Especially with the VA and other labs, and we're getting really, really positive results, like 90+ efficacy. We are working on a series of learnings there with veterans, and we're getting great results. We're getting people out of crisis, out of that mental health crisis, and we're getting them into a great, state to recover and move forward. To the point where we had a headset recently in the Ukraine, in a hospital there, where we had a PTSD person that was nonverbal for 3 months, and in 40 minutes we had him back to verbal and in actual therapy.
Wow.
So we're making a really big impact. Now, how that knowledge will transfer into the corporate world, how we can actually bring human performance improvements and not abuse to humans, I think we're onto something, and it's really going to take off. It's going to be great.
Right. Well, I encourage everyone here during the reception later to experience the demo, to try it out. It's pretty amazing. Jason, Dan.
Just upstairs.
Yeah, just upstairs. And really thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.